Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I upload a whole bunch of different types of videos on this channel, mainly surrounding true crime and psychological cases, as well as a little bit of fashion and lifestyle sprinkled in where I can. Now today I'm back with another unsolved disappearance case. I think I said in one of my last videos that there have been quite a few of these unsolved disappearances popping up in my research recently. That isn't intentional. Typically I will cover cases kind of just as they appear, as they come across in my research or as you guys request them, so I apologise if you kind of wanted a little bit more difference in the types of videos that I do, but it's just how it's happened. For today's case, we're going to be discussing the unsolved disappearance of a young girl named CHERRIE MAHAN, and there really isn't a lot of information surrounding this case. I do like to kind of typically involve these sort of cases in my channel because they do have a lack of information, meaning that they aren't necessarily the most broadcasted names and faces and cases out there. So I know a lot of you guys like to see these really long, really detailed videos, but sometimes I just like to be able to get kind of the lesser known cases out there, and that's what I'm doing today. Before we get started, I'm just going to include my usual disclaimer that I like to include in all of my videos. In no way am I claiming to be an expert in this case or any of the cases that I cover over on my channel. I'm simply relaying the information I am able to find myself on the internet through research, which means that I don't actually have access to all of the information out there because not everything's online and not everything's accessible to me. So because of that, I apologise if I get anything wrong, mispronounce anything or forget anything. I don't mean to do anyone any harm or an injustice, and feel free to correct me down below nicely in a positive way because there is no space for negativity on this channel. And with all that being said, we shall just go ahead and get started with the case. CHERRIE Ann Mahan was born on August the 14th in the year of 1976 in a place called Saxonburg in Pennsylvania in the United States. She had short brown hair and hazel eyes, and she had a memorable scar on her left arm from an incident earlier on in life when she was bitten by a dog. On February the 22nd in the year of 1985, 8-year-old CHERRIE Mahan had been at school just like any other weekday. It was a typical day for her, nothing was out of the ordinary, and as she typically did, she jumped on the school bus to begin her journey home. On this day, she had been wearing a grey coloured coat, a blue denim skirt, blue leg warmers and brown boots. There were a number of other children on the bus that day, and by the time CHERRIE was supposed to get off the bus at her stop, there were at least 3 other students witness to her walking off the bus, so it was definitely known that she was on the bus that day and she also got off at her stop. Now from the bus stop that CHERRIE would usually get off at, she would only have to walk about 150 yards before she reached a driveway kind of at the end of her road. It's like a long dirt driveway, and this was on a place called Corn Planter Road in Butler County in Pennsylvania. On this day at around 4 p.m, CHERRIE's stepfather actually heard the bus approaching the stop, and so he came out of his front door, stood on the doorstep and just waited for CHERRIE to begin her walk from the bus stop because it's pretty much in the eyesight, so he couldn't see the bus stop directly, but he can see down the driveway that she would be walking up from. It would literally only take a couple minutes, so he stood on his front porch that day to watch her walk up the driveway. However, he heard the bus pull away from the stop and there was no sign of CHERRIE. This meant that at some point between CHERRIE getting off the bus at her regular bus stop and the end of her driveway, just out of sight of her stepfather in their home, something happened to young CHERRIE in this very short space of time. CHERRIE's family decided to wait until about 4:30 that same day to see if she'd come home. Perhaps maybe she'd been a little bit late coming out of school, she might have been held back, and so it was possible that she got the following school bus that ran a little bit later. But when she didn't return, they began to ring round all the local neighbours, all of CHERRIE's friends that they knew of, in hopes of one of them knowing where CHERRIE was. Maybe she'd gone home to a friend's house and not told her parents. Anything could potentially happen, so they thought to ring round everyone that they knew of. Sadly, when no one had seen any sign of the young girl, they decided to set out and look for CHERRIE themselves in the local area, but sadly they had no hope in finding any sign of her. And CHERRIE's family acted almost immediately, so when they realised that they had absolutely no chance in finding the young girl, I mean, it was less than an hour passed until they actually reported her to the local law enforcement as being an official missing person. As I said, several students said that they saw CHERRIE not only get on the bus but also get off at her regular bus stop on that day. So nothing was out of the ordinary. She hadn't gotten off a different stop, maybe gotten off at the wrong stop. Nothing seemed to be wrong, and all these students could account for that. So what exactly could have happened to her in such a short period of time and such a short distance away, especially when her stepfather was literally watching where she would be walking. A number of students who had been sat at the back of the bus that day looking out kind of the rear window said that they'd seen a specific car following the school bus as it was approaching Cherrie's stop. This car had been a 1976 Dodge van in either a blue or like a light green shade, and they've specifically reported seeing this and remembering this car because on the side of it was like this big kind of mural or a sticker that depicted a skier wearing specifically red and yellow clothing on the top of a snowy mountain. And obviously this is kind of a very unusual sight. It was a big picture on the side of a car following the school bus, and so these kids remembered it very well. There was also a woman who was parked just near Cherrie's bus stop that day, as her kids actually attended the same school as Cherrie and they were usually getting off at the same bus stop as Cherrie. And she did this every day. She would wait at the bus stop for their kids to get in the car after getting the bus, and she would see Cherrie every day walking towards her driveway. And on this day, she said that she not only had seen the same van that the school kids had reported seeing as being kind of around the bus, but she also saw Cherrie get off the bus that day. She said once she'd gotten her kids in the car, she kind of hovered a little bit to make sure Cherrie was walking in the direction of her home, and then they set off. So not only is this woman an extra witness to Cherrie actually getting off the bus where she was supposed to, but she's also a witness to this unusual car. As well as this particular noticeable car with the mural on the side, there was also known to be a small blue car seen around the same area where Cherrie would have disappeared, but there is literally no way of knowing whether this car has anything to do with the disappearance whatsoever. At this point, investigators kind of were just hoping for any sightings whatsoever, whether they were strange or not. There were no specific sightings of Cherrie anywhere near the unusual van with the painting on the side, or even getting inside the van, but this specific vehicle has kind of been an area of huge concern in relation to Cherrie's disappearance, as I think it's been kind of examined as a likely possibility that someone abducted her and they were driving this particular van following the school bus. Sadly, despite the description of this van being so specific and unusual, no vehicle has been found to match its description and then confirmed to be related to Cherrie's disappearance, so there have been no seizing of any vehicles whatsoever. Since the day of Cherrie's disappearance, there have been countless leads and reports followed up by investigators in hopes of discovering any new information in relation to where this young girl or what happened to her on that day. In more recent years, investigators received a tip from someone claiming to have seen a woman that allegedly looked extremely similar to the age-fit photograph that had been produced, ideally depicting kind of what they believed Cherrie would look like as an adult, and this woman claimed that she'd spotted a woman who looked identical to this age-fit photograph. This seemed like a very promising lead when they followed up on this, as the woman herself, who was believed to look like Cherrie's age-fit photograph, was actually adopted and she wasn't sure of her biological background. So this was followed up further. She decided to look into her background, her ancestry, and she went through a phase of DNA testing, but there was no evidence whatsoever pointing towards her being Cherrie Mahan. I think this is possibly one of the most mysterious and unsettling cases that I have researched, since there is really just no information to go on whatsoever. I've said that in the past, that some of these disappearances and murders and things have very little information for investigators to go on, but that is essentially the case. There is nothing. She seemed to just vanish into thin air with no one seeing anything. It's all very well saying that this unusual van with the mural painted on the side was spotted multiple times by multiple people around the school bus, but there is no way of knowing if this was actually related. And then in the year of 1992, Cherrie's family made the awful decision, it was a really difficult decision, to declare her as legally deceased. The Mahan family received a sizable monetary inheritance from the life insurance policy on Cherrie Mahan, which they incredibly donated the entirety to the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, which is obviously, it's an incredible thing to do. Must have been very difficult for them, but they ultimately put the money they received from Cherrie's life insurance payout to good use to helping future cases like Cherrie's. Cherrie Mahan would be 43 years old today, and sadly, more than 3 decades later, there are no more answers than there were when she disappeared. It's an absolutely heartbreaking case, but I just thought it was one that was worth kind of getting her name and face out there if you've never really heard of this case. And that's kind of what I aim to do in all my videos, but definitely with these kind of lesser known ones where there's very little information, I like to just get the information out there. So let me know your thoughts, if there's anything I've missed out. Maybe there's some theories that you guys might know of. Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you guys found this interesting. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.